I left my fiancée because her biological family was wrecking our life. Weeks later, she was gone permanently, and I discovered a horrific network of affairs and deceit that shattered our entire friend group. I've been seeing my fiancée for 4 years and engaged for 7 months. We are trying to plan a wedding for the fall of next year. Her childhood was, to put it mildly, traumatic and abusive. Her parents were raving narcissists, and she became the scapegoat for her 2 brothers. She was abused and expelled the moment she turned 18. She was, nonetheless, an excellent student and a diligent worker. So, with a few scholarships and a part-time job, she has a terrific career and is fairly independent. The difficulty is that she was still in contact with her relatives. None of them have changed, but one thing has changed: they have become more financially dependent on her. They enjoy gradually re-entering her life and emotionally blackmailing her for help or anything she can offer. They're not happy about it either. They are rude, pompous, and enjoy being a bother. My fiancé can't say no, regardless of what nasty things they say or how openly they attempt to intimidate her. I've always been aware of her family background and have always supported her at difficult times. But over the last year or 2, they've become a lot more brazen and ridiculous. They come over to our house more frequently. They leave, messes all over the place. Her mother behaves like the filthy stepmother from Cinderella. Her father drank all of my beer and emptied half the fridge. Her brothers come around on occasion to act as mouthpieces for their parents. They practically trashed the place and left us to clean it up. And where is my fiancé during all of this? Standing quietly in the corner, virtually shivering. I'm not a fool here. There is actual trauma. She wants to feel liked by them, and she hopes they will appreciate her. Before any of you noble commenters point out the obvious, she has been in therapy for this for years. I tried to set boundaries. I've been trying to push these ass clowns away for nearly 2 years, but this is her house. And no matter how much money I contribute, she will not let me have a say in who comes into her home. They've been mentally and emotionally abusing her for far too long. She recently told me that she wants to gain their approval, how they were correct about her, how she should improve herself for their benefit. I've had too many emotional chats filled with tears and begging to count, hoping she'll take the necessary steps to recover. But she is an adult. I can't make her do anything. I love her. But I can't help but be resentful of what she's doing. It's heartbreaking to see someone you love, who you know deserves so much better, blatantly ruin themselves for people like her family. It's been awful to see her cry herself to sleep one too many nights because of them. I've tried too many times to assist her escape their grasp. But I need to think about the future. What happens when we have children? What happens if she is postpartum and invites them over? What would happen if either of us had a medical emergency? What if our finances get tight and they still demand money? This is the in-law family from hell, and I'll be unable to avoid them. Tomorrow, I'll inform her that I want to postpone the wedding until definite boundaries are created. If she becomes upset, I walk away. I can't do it anymore. I refuse to continue watching such a gradual demise. Update, chat to her, and everything went about as smoothly as one could have expected. I'm currently settling into a motel for a few days while also considering long-term plans to relocate. There's still a lot going on right now, but perhaps by next week I'll be able to consolidate everything into one update. July 1st, 2024. The night after I posted the first post, I decided to have a conversation with my fiancée regarding her family. However, she returned from work early the next day, and I was already off that day, so I started the conversation a little earlier than anticipated, essentially telling her that this arrangement was not sustainable. I didn't feel comfortable marrying her because of how involved her family is in her life, and I certainly didn't feel good bringing a child into the world with them. I didn't want to tell her outright that she couldn't have any contact with them, but I did want to set strong limits on their visits and what they could do around the house. I also requested couples treatment before getting married. She was not pleased. She was just staring at me angrily while I was speaking, then yelling at me when I finished. She told me I didn't understand their dynamic, which worked for her. I told her they're aggressive users who will bleed her dry, and I've never seen them treat her with dignity. She told me she just needed to work harder for them to notice her. I basically yelled at her, saying that a parent's child should not have to beg, plead, or work to be loved. When I finally informed her that she sets limits with them, or I would walk away, she was furious, and I was forced out because I was living in her home. So I've been staying in a motel for the past 2 days, and my belongings have been taken out and stored. And really, it's been fantastic. I'm going to stay with family for a few weeks in mid-July, and then look for a house on my own. I've spent the last several days relaxing, catching up on movies and video games I hadn't seen before, and being able to return from work to a peaceful room without her family tearing the house apart. Things came to a head yesterday. We've had almost no contact since she sent me out, but I know every Saturday her family comes over. and she uses me as a shield from their violence. However, in a very selfish move, I simply left my phone muted all day and played Disco Elysian. I knew she would call back for help with her family, and at this point, pure anger was setting in for her, and I had nothing to do with her problems. By the end of the night, she had sent me over a dozen messages, followed by 2 frantic voicemails begging me to come home. I decided to come over and check on her. Long story short, she was sobbing in the living room, and as I approached her, she was literally squeezing my back, hugging me and crying. I waited for her to calm down before asking what had happened. Long story short, her parents and brother stopped by to give her money and say awful things to her. She asked me to come over to help, but I was ignoring her, and when she attempted to get one of her friends to help, everyone basically said fuck that. It all came together for her. She kicked her family out, but not before they said some very terrible things to her that I won't repeat. She repeatedly apologized to me and encouraged me to come home. I told her openly that I had been harboring strong feelings of anger toward her for some years, and that while I loved her and understood that it was trauma rather than her being abusive, there were huge issues that needed to be addressed if we were to move forward. 1. She sells her house and moves. We make nearly the same amount of money and plan to buy a property together. I am an adult man, and I will not reside in a house over which I have no control. Her family will never set foot in it. They will not come over. If they try to come in threes, I will treat them as a danger. She sees a new therapist, and we begin premarital therapy. She never makes me interact with her family of 5. We will go LC with her family right now, but make no mistake, we are working toward full NC on her end. I informed her that I love her, that we have been together for a long time and had wonderful memories together, and that I understand she is suffering from abuse, but these are non-negotiable, and if she has an issue with any of them, we must part ways. She told me that she has long understood that her family is poisonous and unhealthy, and she wants to make changes. She accepted, but some of these may take time to complete, so I'll stay at the motel till I return to see my family. She is welcome to come over, but I have made it obvious that her house is not where I want to go. She and I are both free tomorrow, so we'll spend the day here and maybe go out. This is certainly not over, but I may not upload anything else until mid-August or so. Update 2. July 6th, 2024. Despite my best intentions to not update until much later in the hopes of improving my relationship with my fiancée and her establishing boundaries with her toxic family, we have already split up. Essentially, after last weekend, when I left her to deal with them on her own, she appeared to fully grasp the problem and was receptive to changes such as limits and a future move. We spent Monday and Tuesday hanging out at my hotel, where I was staying till I returned to my family for a few weeks. She was ambiguous in her texting the previous night when she was meant to come over. She arrived considerably later than planned, and I realized something was up when she basically unloaded on me about how I was abusive, controlling, extremely demanding, and unsupportive. It took me 5 fucking seconds to realize she was reciting a planned speech from her parents. To be honest, I was so upset at this point that, despite having put a lot of money on her, I decided to be a jerk and ask her whether her family had told her to say this. Sue Orette said they offered it to her, although she came up with it on her own. I requested her to describe in precisely what I did. She described me as a parasite living off of her. I reminded her that I pay 50/50 for her fucking mortgage, electricity, and groceries. I have my own automobile, which I pay for. Unlike her fucking parasite parents, who want monthly payments and plunder the kitchen on weekends, this job pays almost the same as hers. I advised her to try again with something better, but she became agitated and said I was attempting to isolate her. I smirked like a jackass and told her that I have always supported her many friendships that she has destroyed on her own because no one wants to deal with her family or be used as a shield like me. At this point, I was practically demanding to know why she is so determined to destroy her life for these people. She simply shouted that I don't understand her family and that she's just trying to reclaim their affection, and she was really ranting at that point. It's really incredible to see up close. I went to a few subreddits to get perspectives, and if you're familiar with them, you'll see how people who have been abused by their own family can be so completely broken that it wrecks their brain to the point where they believe they are the problem and deserve the abuse. So that's how she was. She was completely broken and did not want help. She didn't want to get better, she only wanted to get worse. The revelation hit me like a truck. I felt like a fool for attempting, even though it was what I was supposed to do in the first place. She was virtually insane by this point, and I was simply mentally weary and needed her to go before the cops arrived. She eventually went, but a few concerned neighbors checked on me. Some of her pals are aware, as they have messaged me to check on the issue. I told them the truth, that I needed to be alone to figure out what to do next right now. They disclosed that she had similar outbursts after they expressed concern for her. I had even heard that she could lose her job. She is obviously taking a mental break. From what I gather, she is now fully isolated. She is currently rushing into a miserable, lonely life. There is nothing I can do for her at this point, and as selfish as it sounds, I'm simply glad it's over. Update 3, July 9th, 2024. Things were mostly wrapped up, although there were a few loose ends. I absolutely failed to change my mailing address, which I should have done right away, so a few crucial things were delivered to her residence. I had to go get them, as well as a few of other goods I needed for my relocation that I had left behind and opted to take. She was being tough and not responding to texts about them, so I had to go get them from her personally. I had brought a common acquaintance just in case. Fortunately, she was cooperative in allowing me to retrieve my belongings, and the situation was not too bad. Everything else was as if she had a lot of negative things to say. She told me she was already sleeping around. She was telling me how glad she was now that I was gone. Telling me she's finally free of me and that she'll be so much better off without me. Lots of boilerplate slurs and unpleasant stuff you'd expect from a bad breakup. And you know what? It was so fucking clear that it was a scripted script from her family, and you could tell she was miserable. She appeared disorganized, as if she hadn't slept in days. The house was a mess. She didn't even yell it. She sounded fatigued and broken as she said it. She didn't grin when she said anything. Just a distorted face filled with hatred and wrath. She wasn't the lady I knew anymore. When I was about to go, that person had already left. She was still going. I was fed up and said something like, "Congratulations, your pals are gone. Your human shields have vanished. Your engagement is over. Your assistance is no longer required. Anyone who has ever treated you with dignity is no longer alive. It's only you and your family. I hope you are content while they bleed you dry." It most likely did not go exactly like that, but something similar. She just stood there. He simply stood there, stared at me with apathy, and walked away as I walked out the door. Tiffany, a common acquaintance, asked whether I was okay as we were leaving. I told her that I was fine, and that I was fine, and that I was simply getting ready to return home next week. She also stated that she has heard that my ex has lost her job due to not showing up for several days and basically ghosting them. They are planning an intervention next week and have asked if I might join. But I'm not postponing my trip because frankly I just want a clean break. I know for a fact that if I continue connected, I will just be seeing the steady descent to either a complete breakdown or suicide. I just can't do it. Despite all of this, I'm thrilled about the future, and I've learned that I overlooked far too many red signs in the beginning. Despite all that has transpired, I am certain that I will be fine. I expect this to be my final update. I'm still in town till Sunday afternoon, so something may happen, but it won't be exciting. Update 4, July 18th, 2024. I am currently back in my home state with family, reacquainting myself with the place. I've decided to stay here permanently and am beginning the long process of looking for properties in the region. I've been doing well and spending time with friends and family. A few mutuals with my ex-fiancée have informed me of what's been going on, and things appear to be improving. The plan was for an intervention on Sunday, but Saturday night, after her family visited again, she called pals in a frenzy, and it finally dawned on her how badly she messed up. It was a full-blown panic episode and meltdown that landed her in the emergency room. Needless to say, she finally admits that she is unhappy and that she has messed up her life severely. Apparently she attempted to phone me, but I had her blocked. She still has a job, and the information about her losing it was incorrect. But she's hanging by a thread there, and her supervisors have effectively told her to utilize her PTO for a few weeks to get her mind straight. She's an important asset there, and they want to make sure she can heal herself before they terminate her. Her friend circle is quite close. My ex was a really helpful and supportive buddy, so it's understandable that her group is going to such lengths to aid her. However, there is an implicit agreement that if she returns to her old ways, they will all let her sink on her own. She is doing as well as can be expected. Her family has continued to contact her with phone calls and SMS. They attempted to visit her residence but were strongly redirected by friends and neighbors. I hope she understands the type of support system she has. As trashy shitshow family arguments go, her parents and brothers have taken it to Facebook, which from what I hear, has worked in my ex's advantage. Because it has exposed their behavior to many more people and appears to have quieted them down for a while. She had one of the mutuals deliver a message to me. Essentially, she admitted that all of the horrific things she stated to me were false, and were committed by her family. As I suspected, she apologized for how things ended and hoped we could reconnect sometime. Unfortunately, I had to transmit that we needed to stay separated for good, and she needed to focus on her rehabilitation. But I informed her that I still cared for her, and wished her the best, but this had to be our goodbye. The message appears to have been passed forward, and her friends are assisting her in processing it. She has a long way to go, but I hope she finds peace like I do with my comments. They simply try to play the "our daughter is ungrateful and cruel" card with close friends and family, only to face a shitstorm of criticism for their actions. Take this with a grain of salt, because it is unsubstantiated from what someone told me. In retribution, people began immediately calling one of the brothers' jobs and leaving critical reviews on their Facebook page, airing all of the dirty laundry, and it isn't looking good for him. However, the unconfirmed top underscore put 1,541. As trashy shit show family disagreements normally go, her parents and brothers have taken it to Facebook, with no lies discovered. I applaud the AP for avoiding that shit show as much as possible. It is far preferable for this woman to understand that her decisions have real repercussions, and that if she does not want such consequences in the future, she must do genuine and serious work on herself. FAR Season 695. I'm glad to hear your ex-fiancée is hopefully getting the care she so needs. And, my buddy, I'm delighted you're protecting yourself from this cluster. Stay strong and best wishes on your new journey home. Update 5 August 15, 2024. I've been doing pretty well since I returned home. All of my belongings arrived safely, and I am now living with my family while I look for a new home. I've set up my employment here and have been back at work for the past week. I occasionally come here to comment and shitpost, but that's it. Despite the best efforts of my ex's pals, the situation has finally genuinely ended in the worst way possible, and the friend group has been broken as a result. My ex took her own life. Almost everything I'm about to say I learned last night. Since I departed, her friends have helped her get back on her feet. They went above and beyond by encouraging her to seek better therapy, establishing boundaries with her family, and getting her out. Tiffany, the friend who was there to aid me the last time I spoke face-to-face with my ex, became suspicious of her when she noticed her becoming touchy-feely with her boyfriend Daniel while they were hanging out at her place. I don't know when push became shove, but she eventually got hold of her boyfriend's phone when he was sleeping and discovered very sexual messages between them, which dated more than 5 months ago. Tiffany clearly lost her shit and informed everyone. Nobody could have predicted the shit show that followed. Daniel, Tiffany's ex, threw another member of the friend group, Joseph, under the bus, alleging he helped cover for him. Joseph's girlfriend, in turn, dumped him and kicked him out of her home. A friend group of about 9 people, including my ex, nearly exploded, and Tiffany and Joseph's ex are the only ones who still communicate with each other. Mind you, as I was told this, I was informed that, despite the fact that I had been gone for about a month, everything had transpired in the first week. Immediately, my ex lost her entire support system and was virtually blamed for everything. This simply exacerbated her already deteriorating mental health. Of course, everyone was curious as to why she had done such things to one of her closest friends. She just provided the normal spiel about how they had gotten close. He was a terrific support system for her. And, of course, she had told her family about him, and they approved of him rather than me. She invited him over after I left her house to go to my hotel. Apparently, her ultimate goal was to leave me for him, but he wouldn't leave Tiffany for her, and he despised hearing about her family, so he obviously wouldn't go for anything more than a secret affair. I expected to be far angrier than I was, but I had already started to move on. I had recently completed a full health exam at my new doctor's office and received a clean bill of health, including no STDs, so I didn't have to be concerned about that, and frankly, it wouldn't do much good at this time. I was told that I was not informed because, honestly, no one knew how to surprise me so late, which I can understand. So, my ex was absolutely outcast. Even Tiffany's ex, who simply vanished. She was blocked and left to cope with her troubles on her own. Tiffany simply knew she had lost her work for good and spent all of her leisure time with her family. They had finally triumphed and left. 2 nights ago, it was discovered that she had killed herself and her home. Her relatives discovered her. When they arrived at her house, one of her old friends from the neighborhood showed up. Her family was there, and they didn't seem to care. Tiffany contacted me last night just to let me know. There were other messages, and she politely asked if I wanted mine just for closure. I honestly don't know what to do about it. Right now, I'm experiencing severe mental whiplash. I never knew this woman. I've had to acknowledge over the last month that she was abusive in the relationship because of how she treated me with her family, and now it appears that it was a ploy to drive me away so she could be in the arms of another man who her family seemed to appreciate. Which, frankly, confuses me even more since what did he have that I didn't? Did they just like messing with her life? Was there anything real about her? Was there anything real about the folks with whom I spent years of my life? Being back here was the best decision I've ever made, and I now have complete evidence of that. I can begin therapy to work through this issue, spend time with a group of individuals who are truly trustworthy in person, rather than online, and have relatives nearby for support. But yes, this will screw with me for a long time. Comments, Rude Red Dog 1. Don't read the letter, it won't help you. Give it to the therapist to read, and then seal it in another envelope. Let them decide depending on your mental wellness. When or if you should ever read it, or if it should be left unread and burned. I'm not going to deal with the letter or anything else about them. It's time to go on with my life.